And there are some concerns I'm picking up that maybe where that funding is spread too thinly, that actually the neighbourhood planning process will get funded by developers or major landowners in the area who've got an interest, frankly, in the outcome. So can you reassure us that we're not going to see neighbourhood planning funded by people who actually want to see a particular outcome, and that's not going to distort the system?
Well, the key safeguard in the neighbourhood planning system is that the neighbourhood plan has to be adopted, has to be put forward by a community body, either a parish or town council or a neighbourhood forum that is open to everyone there. And that more than that, it has to pass a referendum of local people. So they're very strong safeguards. It also, for the reasons I mentioned, has to make sure it doesn't frustrate the legitimate strategic aspects of the local plan. So they're very strong safeguards. But I do think that actually in some cases, say you've got a completely industrial area, and perhaps an industrial park in a former heavily industrial part of the landscape, where actually there is only heavy industry there, or what was heavy industry. The idea that a group of developers can work with local people and can work with their democratically elected representatives to actually produce a plan to regenerate that area, and if they want to help fund that, I think that's a reasonable thing. Equally, if you take high streets, I hope that neighbourhood plans will have a lot to say about high streets and how to not only keep but actually enhance the role of high streets as the central place in our towns and villages. If they're the Chamber of Commerce or the traders want to come together and participate in this and make sure that the interests of the traders in that high street are represented, and that they want to perhaps sort of fund a piece of research that shows the footfall of those kind of patterns, I think that's perfectly reasonable. And in fact, when we had our discussions in committee, I think all sides were very keen to ensure that local traders should not be excluded from the ability to participate in the production of neighbourhood plans. Because after all, I think a neighbourhood, especially where it does involve a high street, consists not just of residents, crucial though they are, but also the people who are absolutely part of the community, often the linchpins of the community, who happen to be the shopkeepers there.
And a final question on neighbourhood planning, really around the relationship with local authorities, because I hear talk of the sort of glass floor where local authorities aren't willing to let go. They're not willing to support their communities. So what's your advice to communities, to civic societies who are faced with a local authority which really doesn't buy into what neighbourhood planning is about?
Well, Tony, that's why we've made what you referred to earlier as this power shift, that we haven't left it just to the discretion of local authorities. We've given a right to neighbourhoods, for every neighbourhood, to insist on having a neighbourhood plan, not to be thwarted by a local authority if it doesn't want to play ball. Having said that, I should say that our experience is that I think a lot of local authorities are positively enthusiastic. In fact, we've been inundated with requests from local authorities working with parishes and towns and neighbourhoods to get on with producing neighbourhood plans together in anticipation of the legislation. So I think the best councils have always recognised actually the importance of neighbourhoods and the importance of the very local, and have had these good relationships. But we've got safeguards there to make sure that there is a duty on local authorities to cooperate with the process of producing a neighbourhood plan. They can't just not return calls and refuse to provide information that's needed. They have to cooperate, and they have to adopt a neighbourhood plan once it's been examined and found to be fit for purpose and been adopted by a majority in a referendum of the local people. So they have to do that. But our hope and my expectation is that the vast majority of councils will see that actually this is a further big step, but a step in a direction that I think they've thought for some time was the right way to go, which is to have a much greater involvement of very local people.
And is there anything else in the bill that you think civic society should be looking at?
Yes, I think the community right to challenge is going to be a really important new shift of power to communities. What this does is it allows community groups, voluntary organisations locally, to take any of the activities that the local council operates, whether that's the borough or the district council or the county council. And if anyone in the community, any community group, thinks that they have a reasonable proposition, they could provide that service in a way that is demonstrably better or cheaper, either better for the same price or the same kind of quality for less, then they should have the right to be reasonably heard, to put that case to the local council. And if it really is the case that they can demonstrate that we could do a much better job by doing things locally rather than by the authority doing it in the previous way, then they have the right to be heard and to be not unreasonably refused. That is something, it's not an original idea, it was inherent in the Sustainable Communities Act that I know your organisations have been very active in campaigning for. That Act, I think, had two important principles in it. One was that communities should know what's spent in their area by public bodies, and the second is that they should have the right to suggest alternative ways of doing things. In the Act, that all got watered down a bit, and so we've taken the opportunity of the Localism Bill really to give life to that and to really entrench the power for local groups to make suggestions of how things could be done better.
And final question, can I just put you in a parallel universe where you're running a local civic society? What would you be doing to prepare your civic society for the Localism Bill becoming an act?
Well, it's not so parallel, because I do spend a lot of time with members of my local civic society, as they know, and they're a very enthusiastic and motivated group of people, as I know your members are up and down the country. So I think what should be done at the moment is to look at the potential, especially on neighbourhood planning, to see, to start the process now. We don't need to wait for the Act to become law. Hopefully later in the year it'll have its royal assent. But why not start now? Why not think about what is the right neighbourhood, whether it's an existing parish or whether it's a group of neighbouring parishes. Start to think about convening some meetings and discussions to think about the areas that should be considered in this. Get in touch with the government to apply for some of the support that will be available. But start now to produce a plan so that when the bill becomes an act, it can have force straight away. And the second thing, I suppose, is just to look at things that are done locally, that perhaps people have felt, I'm sure that could be done better if only we could had greater to say in it. Make a list of them and be ready to challenge the council in a few months' time when that right is there. In fact, try them in advance. Tell your council, well, later in the year we're going to have the right to do this. Don't wait for us. Listen to our suggestions now. So I think there's a big agenda for local civic groups to take up these rights. And in so doing, I think it's an opportunity to draw more people into the movement and to get people involved locally. Because one of the questions that I know that sometimes is in people's minds is, well, what's the point of me getting involved, if we don't have the power, if all we can do is comment on a planning application, say, and the planning committee can take or leave it, then do I really want to spend my time doing that? You would be surprised that I think it's worthwhile doing that anyway. But for those people who want to have a bit more clout in local matters, this is a big opportunity, and I hope that they will get involved, they will join your groups and start to really motor with the rights that are being established.
Thank you, Greg Clark. We're looking forward to exercising those rights, and we're looking forward to your continued support.
Great pleasure. Thank you very much, Tony.